Christmas. Who doesn't love Christmas? A time full of happiness and joy and presents and family and government manipulation. The history of Christmas is incredibly complex, dating back thousands of years to 1843 with the publication of A Christmas Carol. No one up until then had ever thought about assigning cultural importance to what was simply another normal day. America was very cautious about accepting this into their culture, understandably so, seeing as they had so recently left England to escape the British culture of tea and royalty. After the Civil War, however, the U.S. government was afraid. The country was still disunified, and the last thing they wanted was another uprising. So they did the one thing they know how to do. They lied. After bribing all of the news outlets to change their poor reviews of the book, they mass-printed the story and stocked every library in the country with multiple copies. This wasn't simply a way to unite the country over a common holiday, though. No. You see, while it is true that it promoted unity through family gatherings, it also promoted consumerism through purchasing and preparing large feasts and giving gifts. After declaring it a national U.S. holiday, the people went on happily, brainlessly pretending that they had always had Christmas. I mean, it couldn't have just happened. It had to come from somewhere. Everything was going well, that is, until the Great Depression. People realized they now couldn't participate in the necessary exchange of worldly objects, and the people were afraid. Seeing the fear, the government decided to form a new secret organization. They called it the Christmas for Real Americans Project. Knowing that they needed to prevent the inevitable chaos that would follow a Christmasless year, they began working hard on a prototype. They called it the National and International Christmas Nobot. The problem with Nick was that it didn't look very inviting. Similarly to the animatronic Mangle from Five Nights at Freddy's, Nick had wires and metal sprouting from his slim body, making him look more like a Christmas demon. Knowing that their creation had to be accepted, the Christmas for Real Americans Project built off of their prototype, but with mainly design in mind. They called it the Socially Acknowledged and Nationally Tolerated Android, still referring to it as its original name, Nick, in private. This new and improved machine was then given access to every government agency's database, making it the most sought-after computer on the planet. After this, they boxed him up and sent him off to a government safe house located at the tip of the North Pole. Here's where it gets tricky. For 364 days of the year, the Santa is locked in a nuclear fallout shelter, monitoring all of Earth's civilian activity through government surveillance cameras. The night before Christmas, he is released from his cage and given a North Pole Throp B-2 Spirits, a precursor to the stealth bomber we know and love today. The only difference between the two is that it was never designed to drop bombs. Rather, it was designed to drop presents. Indeed, using his intel gathered over the last year, he dropped government-manufactured objects into the homes of those struggling from the Great Depression, but doing their best to make it through. For those who were greedy and didn't share everything they had, he dropped what was called, back then, codename Operation Artificial Lens, which was a discreet camera developed to spy on possible security threats, up close and personal. At this point, the crap had not released any of this information to the public. They were oblivious, believing that the presents had appeared out of nowhere. However, as fear of the Nazi regime increased, the president gave the order to release Santa to the entire world that night, allowing for the infiltration of the Axis' base like a Trojan horse. The Eastern world was shocked at the appearance of gifts in their homes at night, as they had only heard about it happening in America. Yet they accepted them with open arms, believing it to be a sign of good times to come. Hitler, hearing of this news, was outraged. But seeing how it was a global phenomenon, he decided to use it to his advantage. He attempted to dismantle every Christmas tradition and reconstruct it using Nazi imagery. This included forging ornaments of himself, changing the star on top of the tree to a swastika, and calling himself the Savior. The one thing he couldn't erase from the country's mind, however, was this concept of an overwatcher, someone who would provide them with worldly goods. Santa was more powerful than Hitler's brainwashing, and that was when America knew that they would inevitably win the war. Years after the disgusting Nazi regime was toppled, Kraft decided it was time to release Santa to the public. The Air Force put out a report on Christmas Eve, saying they were tracking an unidentified sleigh pulled by a reindeer. Because the public had never seen Santa before, the government knew they had to put a fantastical image into people's brains. The idea of flying reindeer was proposed by one of the board members, so they went with it. After that, people patiently waited for more information on this mysterious flying man. And that information came when Conad announced that they would guard and protect Santa from people who do not believe in Christmas. Sounds almost like a threat, doesn't it? Nonetheless, the people rejoiced. Soon thereafter, concept art was leaked into the public sphere when pictures of a jolly fat man in a red suit were printed in the newspapers one morning in December after someone claimed to have seen him. In reality, this was a publicity stunt by Crap, knowing that they couldn't keep Santa a secret forever with the increasing technological capabilities. Ever since, the media has made Santa an icon stretching across the entire planet. Trouble came, however, when the government realized they no longer had the funds to allocate to the project. Producing billions of knockoff products each year was becoming impossible and financially problematic. Yet still, Christmas was the one thing that kept the world united, and without Santa they didn't know what would happen. So they devised a plan. Once again, using the media, they slowly made people believe that Santa had never been real. In fact, the parents had been supplying the items for the children, not even for themselves, the entire time. Like the sheep they are, everyone bought it, and likewise bought gifts. The fantasy is still passed on from generation to generation, however, because just as we saw with the Nazis, Santa is invincible. Today, Santa is only occasionally sent into the field, and that's usually to do some basic reconnaissance work. Now that nearly every person carries a tiny camera in their pocket, the need for coal was greatly diminished. No one knows where Santa is stored when he's not on a mission. Some say he's still in the safe house of the North Pole, others say he's in the basement of the Pentagon. At the end of the day, though, he still has one job. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good, for your own sake.